Okay, before we dive into this video, I wanted to give two little diatribes. Just kind of going over what's been going on with me and what the plan is for today. So I did say yesterday in the Daniel Sprong, Rick Tocchet video that I would plan to make a video later in the night talking about the Vancouver and Seattle game. That was full within my intention. I did not lie to y'all about me wanting to talk about it. But I did say that I had some plans at night that would force me into some tough decisions. Either I pause up on my plans and attend late because I needed to stay at home to make the video about the post-game Canucks and Kraken matchup, or worst comes to worst, I could go to my event, play some volleyball, and step out for a bit to do a car vlog and talk about Vancouver. The thing that I didn't say that I could do was straight up just skip the video entirely, which we ended up doing because the game sucked. It really did. We watched it here in our household, and then I had to go off to volleyball. I was like, look, I'm leaving. I have an event to go to. I'm going to be playing sports, and I do not want to sit around here waiting for a third period after it's 3-0 and it's looking really bad. The Canucks are not doing anything well. Tyler Myers then scores a wraparound goal. Nice to see that out of the big guy, but if there was going to be a preseason flub of a game, that was it. So I was like, yeah, we're not going to talk about that. I can pass on making a video today because nobody wants to talk about that game. Nobody's going to want to engage with a topic like that regarding such a lackluster and stagnant performance. I will say, though, the Canucks are playing once again against the Calgary Flames today, and I am going to be spending the majority of my day outside of the house. I will try to get a post-game video out. I will have access to watching some of the game at certain parts throughout my evening via my phone and the Ignite TV app, but for the most part, I will be busy for this afternoon and evening, so I am not going to make any promises as to whether or not a post-game video will be made for sure. If it does get made, then I do have a plan to do it, but we will only continue with that if the game is actually worth talking about. You know, I don't want to force myself and handcuff myself into making videos about games that people don't really care about. You know, there are some losses the Canucks have where the videos only get like 800, 900 views, 1,000 views, and I think about it and I'm like, is it worth the stress to pause up a lot of my quality time with those that I love in order to go home for half an hour, make a video on something that doesn't really move the needle and then have that as a big distraction for everybody? I don't really think it's worth it, right? We can talk about stuff that actually is worth talking about. Like this video right here. Let's talk about the Vancouver Canucks and Rick Tocchet. Yes, continuing the talks on Tocchet, because I wanted to go out there and read this piece published on Canucks Army from yesterday by Tyson Cole. The reason this piece is awesome is because it has some really interesting quotes from the Vancouver Canucks head coach Rick Tocchet as to who can earn that spot with Elias Pettersson and Jake DeBrusk. Heading into this upcoming year, I think a lot of Canucks fans had Jake DeBrusk penciled in as the Elias Pettersson staple winger. You want to talk about duos? Miller-Besser, Garland-Joshua? There could very well be a new duo here in Petey DeBrusk. And as we had seen in the overtime game in Abbotsford against the Calgary Flames, if Pettersson and DeBrusk are able to have that same level of chemistry that they had in that game for the entire regular season, then there's no telling how good the Vancouver Canucks could be. Petey could realistically get 35 to 40 goals. DeBrusk could realistically get 35 to 40 goals. Petey could be a 100-point guy again. DeBrusk could get 70 or 80. It is incredible, especially when you consider DeBrusk is going to have that net front spot in the power play too. He's going to have a lot of opportunity. But Petey and DeBrusk, that is only two dudes. There is still one more spot left on what would be a hypothetical Pettersson line. You're not going to place Besser there. You're not going to place Miller there. That doesn't really work. There are some other guys that could play with them. And then you have some other free agents that were signed too that could make themselves known as the new Petey winger. But what Rick Tocchet goes out there and talks about is a list of names that could be in that spot. So without further ado, let's go out there and read this article. It says here, written out by Tyson Cole, that during Thursday's split practice, we already saw a taste of the line juggling as Kiefer Sherwood ended up skating with Pettersson and DeBrusk. There's a lot of different options to go, Tocchet said. I could put Nils Hoglander on the left. I know Jake DeBrusk can play the right side. He's actually a good right winger too. Kiefer Sherwood could go there. There are a lot of guys. Jonathan Lekkerimäki has done a nice job in his time there. It's a job we are really looking for someone to take hold of. One notable name that Tocchet didn't mention was Daniel Sprong, which was surprising considering the highlight reel goal he had scored in the previous game to tie it with 14 seconds left. Yes, he is an option, Tocchet replied when asked if Sprong was a candidate. I shouldn't have forgotten him because he's a guy that we're really excited to help and teach. You saw that goal last night. He can do that. There's just some times in between when he gets a little lost. I'm excited to work with him, like really excited. He is definitely a candidate to go in that spot in between Petey and DeBrusk. Or not in between. Petey's the center, never mind. It would be crazy not to give him a chance up there. And if you wanted the bigger conversation on Sprong, we did talk about all this and more in yesterday's video, but I wanted to dive into that list of 4 names, 4 guys that could be in the running for taking that final winger spot with Petey and DeBrusk. Kiefer Sherwood, Jonathan Lekkerimäki, Nils Hoglander, and Daniel Sprong. You know what they say, right? Birds of a feather flock together. What I see in all of these guys, the big similarity is their goal-scoring potential. Now, I get it. You might be looking at me and saying, Lego, what the hell are you talking about? Kiefer Sherwood goal-scoring potential? I'm like, yeah, the guy has a really underrated shot. It's one of the more underutilized parts of his game, but when it's going, it's going. He can absolutely rip it. You talk about Jonathan Lekkerimäki, he can also rip it, not to mention Daniel Sprong, rip it, yeah, he's capable of that too. And then you have Nils Hoglander, who I don't want to say is like a pristine sniper to the nth degree like some of these other players can be, but Nils Hoglander did absolutely dominate the NHL in terms of even strength goals this previous season, so I do not want to take away any of his goal-scoring prowess either. So, what exactly seems to be the plan here? Well, the Canucks are probably looking for some goal-scoring stability, and all of these guys add an element of that. Jonathan Lekkerimäki is probably the guy with the most to earn if he wants to make that spot. Daniel Sprong, I'd think there's a good stepping stone for him to already take it by default because he had himself those projections saying that he'd be there, plus he played very well in the Abbotsford game, and he really has this sort of interesting relationship with Tocchet, it seems, where Vancouver's coaching staff is super committed to making sure that he's able to round himself out and become better. Hoglander and Petey is something that worked last season, but with other options available to you, you have to ask whether or not it's fully appropriate to commit to doing that one more time. Sherwood, as we had talked about, has himself a lot of work ethic and drive in his game, so he certainly adds an element or two that maybe the Pettersson line would lack without him. And then you have some other names that are tossed around in there, a lot of goal-scoring players. But honestly, it's a good problem to have if you're Rick Tocchet trying to decide which one out of these very impressive players deserves to be playing with probably the best center they'll ever play with in their careers. Elias Pettersson is that good, and playing alongside of DeBrusk, you could easily pencil him in for 100 points and not feel silly about it. So the final question is, who's going to be the guy to ride shotgun on that line? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Apologies if y'all were expecting a video yesterday only for us to not make one. Later tonight, I hope we can make a video about the game. I'm not too sure, though. I'm not going to promise anything. I will be able to watch good chunks of it, but I'm not too sure whether or not the video will come. I know some of y'all will be kind in the comments and say, Lego, screw the video. Like, go out there and live your life. But still, you know, this is my job. I've made a commitment to this, and I want to make sure I am doing my best to uphold what makes sense for me business-wise and personal-wise. So yeah, hooray for self-growth and being able to understand where my priorities are, right? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Who's going to end up with Elias Pettersson and Jake DeBrusk? And bye.